So
gentlemen.
let me hear your Toby, if you don't mind me, let me hear your how do you feel about that whole situation? And it'll be easier versus me telling you things from a cop side. I can that way I can honestly try to address issues that a lot of people have with the whole thing, and where I can tell you where the officers were wrong at.
For me, I see it a bunch of different ways. Number one is he handled the situation wrong.
Okay.
Even though he
As in
handled the
he.
situation wrong, the cops'
Mm-hmm.
reaction to the situation
Well, who
is
was
what
he?
I have a problem with. I don't have a
Tyreek.
problem with you giving him a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with him giving Tyreek Hill a ticket because he did break the law.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't, how you came at him. You really didn't need him to roll down the window, but he did have dark tint, so I give you the benefit of the doubt on that. Once you had his ID, there was really no need to go into all the extras. You knew who he was. You knew even one of the officers that supported him came up and said, "You know who this is, right?" He said, "That's Tyreek Hill. He played for the Miami Dolphins." So right then and there, they knew it was a problem. And that's in the video. And that's when the supervisor comes in and you hear the supervisor, they kind of cut the audio off from the supervisor because the supervisor was like, "This your call." He said, "It really ain't no big deal," or something to that effect, but just write him the ticket. They knew they messed up. That
So
don't
when you
excuse
say that,
that.
when let me, so I don't, because forgive me. Let me ask you, when you say they knew they messed up, how do you see that they messed up?
By dragging him out the car and everything.
Okay.
That was, but
Okay.
you give your honest opinion. It don't have, it's probably not going to agree with mine.
No,
All right.
because it ain't.
Well, I
There.
want y'all. Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry. I want you to do this before you give your opinion on that. We're gonna go ahead and just get this disclaimer in there and come
Yeah.
back
Go
on the
ahead.
other side with Jerry's
Okay.
response. All right,
Okay.
that's a little keep everybody on the cliffhanger for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you have your seatbelt on? Why don't you have your seatbelt on? Like what? Why do you have it on? Keep it down. Hey! Keep your window down. Hey, keep your window down. Keep your window down. I'm gonna get you out of the car. As a matter of fact, get out of the car. Give me that. Get out of the car. Give me that. Break that freaking window. Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now. We're not playing this game. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out.
All right, there we go. Welcome to the live here. Make it make sense. You have Jerry and Hot Tub. You already got the beginning of the conversation there with Hot Tub, and Jerry's ready to respond.
Okay. So let me, before I fully respond to this, let me kind of bring people in the training of a cop. Okay. So there's a lot of training, a lot of things that you're trained to do. A lot of this stuff ain't always just so personal, right? There's protocols, there's way we handle cases like this. In that situation, did it warrant them pulling him out of the car? Yes. could they have been maybe a little bit more patient and understanding why? Because I never heard the officers ask him what is the issue, why is it he's doing what he's doing, and give him the opportunity to give them an explanation, and maybe that explanation will be satisfactory enough for them not to do what they did. Now, had they had that, or they knew they was dealing with someone who was a armed felon, or someone that was suspected in something, or the officer witnessed them do something suspicious like hide a weapon, a knife, or a gun, then yes, now we're talking about a safety issue, okay? The window issue. Tyreek Hill is wrong in that. The window issue is this. The officer came up. Yes, Tyreek Hill did give him the ID. He did give him the registration. But here, by law, he's supposed to talk to this officer. They really call that hindering an investigation. Now you put up a shield, okay? You put this window up, which we all know that would be disrespectful to anyone. I don't care if you and I are talking and I'm talking to you and you roll your window up. We will all feel disrespected. And it is a law that provides for that. But at the end of the day, it's disrespectful. What Tyreek Hill, he can say whatever he want to say, complying or not. He was being disrespectful. He was complying, but in a disrespectful way. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I'm just saying it creates habit. So it was communication on both parts. Tyreek Hill could have said, officer so-and-so, hey, officer, why did you stop me? Da-da-da-da-da. The officer's telling him that, okay, hey, my name is Tyreek Hill. I'm a professional football player. I'm on my way to the game. If you don't mind, officer, I'm going to give you my information. I'm going to keep my window rolled up because I deal with a lot of paparazzi. I don't want people riding by, getting in my business. So allow me that courtesy to keep the window up while you run my information. What would have been wrong with Tyreek Hill saying that?
This is my issue with what you just said. What's the first statement in your Miranda rights? You
don't have Miranda. So hold on. That's not Miranda. That you don't get. So
I'm just proving the point. You have the right to remain silent. If I give
so
you
hold on. Let me say this, and I ain't trying to overtalk you or correct you, because we don't want to. I want to make sure people understand this is a thing, especially in the Black community, that we get confused. You don't have, there's no such thing as Miranda rights at that time. Miranda rights are when I'm asking you a question that could possibly, like, hey, did you shoot someone? Did you do this? If I'm bringing you in for a line of questioning, that's when the officer has to read you Miranda. And at that point, you can say, I refuse to make a statement. Now, in that case, he's only asking him to give me your information. So Miranda doesn't apply in this setting at this time.
Two things. I'm not required to talk to the police at any point in time. I don't have to talk to you. Now, if you're charging me with something, which that's what wasn't articulated by the video. Tyreek Hill wasn't charged with anything. They didn't even tell him what the ticket was for. He just asked for license and registration that he gave him. At that point in time, now me, I would have not said anything else after that. I'm not small talking with you. I don't feel the need to. I've had, as shocking as it is, I've had several encounters with the police.
I'm shocked.
I'm not shocked because
is that you can't talk your way out of a ticket. So I just give them my money and I just sit there and be quiet. Now I don't have to answer your questions, but I'm gonna do exactly what he did. Now with the rolling up the window, that can go either way. He has the right to roll up his window based off what you said. If he can articulate that point, I'll even concede that point. He should have articulated that. Should have done a lot of things better.
Yeah.
A lot.
So I want to just so because I'm speaking in line because I don't want no one saying as an officer you know better and you're misleading people, right? So when I say things, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I just want to make sure that I speak what I know is facts. Okay. So what I will tell you when you say that he had the right to roll his window up at that time, and I know the public don't understand this, and this is where the public has to understand this at that time when the officer has pulled you over, at that point you are being detained by that officer, and that gives that officer legal right. If he has initiated his emergency stop, you know, as we call it, whether it's blue lights or sirens or whatever, once he has pulled you over, then people say, well, you got to tell me what I done. Well, first thing you got to do is give me the opportunity. I will agree in this incident, the officers say, hey, sir, most of the time you hear state troopers say, do you know why I'm pulling you over? No. The officer should say, hey, my name is Officer so-and-so. I clock you back there doing 70 and a 40. And I need your license and registration. But there's no provision to give Tyreek Hill that chance to say, I'm going to roll this window up on you. I'm going to give you my license. Now, Tyreek Hill don't have to say anything. He can just comply by giving him the license and the registration. So, yes, the officer should have told him why he was being stopped.
Now,
And at that point, go ahead.
Now, go ahead.
So at that point, once the officer told him that, now Tyreek Hill handed him the information. Do Tyreek Hill necessarily have been told or know that he can't roll his window up? No. Did the officer tell him that? No. So that's kind of a moot point. Is it disrespectful in a way? Was he being disrespected? I think in Tyreek Hill mind, in some ways he was. He probably was mad because he was getting stopped. But what Tyreek Hill should have said was just that, or the officer should have said, well, sir, why are you rolling your window up? Versus just saying, hey, roll your window down, roll your window down. Yes, as an officer, sometimes we can get too caught up in being police that we forget to be people first. And so that's where I think where the officer is wrong, because the officer could have said, hey, Mr. Hill, or why do you have your window up, sir? And then at that time, Tyreek could have said something. Or Tyreek really should have, in my opinion, been the one that initiated that. He should have said, officer, I'm not being disrespectful to you, sir. I just don't want people riding by taking pictures of me. I'm so-and-so. Here's my ID and stuff. I'm compliant. I'll keep my hands up here. I'm on the phone with my agent trying to let him know what's going on. Whoever, right? Just simple communication.
Now, this is my issue. This is my issue with that state. Is that what too often we find, and you've said, you've even articulated that these officers feel disrespected. Let me tell you something. The public does not have, it's not your right to be respected by the public. The Supreme Court has upheld, hey, however the public feels about you is irrelevant. However they respond to you, they have a right to respond to you in a certain way, as long as it's not violent and can consider what's y'all disorderly conduct. As long as it's not borderline on disorderly conduct, I don't have to agree with your stop. I don't even have to like the stop. I don't have to, all I have to do is pretty much just kind of go with the flow of the stop and comply with the with what you asking me to do. At the point where the window went up, nobody in that stop had said to him, don't roll your window up. So he was in his right within that point. Now, the way the officer responded to that by banging on his window, at that point, that's when I say, Tyreek Hill, hey, look, man, you ain't got to bang on my window like that. And I get that response from him. But this is what I would encourage Tyreek Hill and any young black male. Yes, you're in the right for the most part. But you also have to understand the society that we live in. And you can't do what your white counterparts do. They can get flippant with officers. They can cuss them out and not go to jail. We cannot do that because the minute we show a 1 iota of emotion, it's considered a hostile action, and that justifies, basically, in their eyes, it justifies everything else that happens to you. So I'm not, as much as I am at holding police accountable, I will say this. We have to do a better job of teaching these young black males that you live in a police state, dog, and you the suspect, whether you the suspect or not. It ain't right. It shouldn't be. But that society that we live in. My main concern, and I teach my children is, I'm not concerned with everything else. I want to make sure, number one, you come home. Mm-hmm. I fight court in court. I don't fight court on the street.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. Oh, finish your thought there. I got a couple of questions I want to ask you guys. But go ahead.
So what you're saying, I don't necessarily disagree. And once again, I don't like how things are now, the way police have been doing, because it's a lot of things. Like even in this situation, it got personal. The officer felt disrespected, and you're right. It doesn't matter how, and you're trained, it doesn't matter how combative that person may be. If your life ain't in jeopardy, if you this, that, and the other, it doesn't matter as long as the person is complying, right? The act of rolling the window, is that an act of non-compliance? I agree with you. No, because it was never stated to me in the beginning. Now, the officer did ask him to roll it down, and I couldn't quite understand what Tyreek Hill told him no or whatever. I think Tyreek Hill said he was trying to tell him, who he was and why he didn't want it. I think at that point, like you said earlier, this is where the officer is got to be able to pull his emotions back, or the other officers got to step in and say, hey, run this information. If he's good, then do what you're going to do. If you're going to write him a ticket, write him a ticket. If you're going to warn him. Because you're now, in somewhat, the officer plays a part in the escalation of force here, okay? As well as Tyreek, but like you said too, Tyreek don't have to like this stop. Tyreek don't have to like you. You got a job to do, is to enforce the law. So Tyreek Hill said, do what you got to do. At that point, I think the officer left it there. I think for me personally, I would have ran this information, wrote up his ticket, and asked him at that point to sign the ticket. They tell officer, if you feel this situation is too hard for you to handle, then call someone out to help you. Sometimes their egos get in the way. Okay. So I think the officer played a big part in allowing his feelings to be involved, and then, so let me and a couple of things I want to put out here too. So officers they are human, and they react to things. Just like we all may have a group of friends in a social circle or in a work environment, it's always that one person that we know is somewhat of an asshole, someone that we tolerate, and just because we tolerate, we know that he's going to be a problem, right? Okay, so at the end of the day, who Tub the man is, doesn't change who Tub is with a uniform on. Because I had a lot of them, I didn't like them because I didn't like them for whatever the reason was. I had to work with them, and half the time, if I can avoid working with them, or if I call for some backup, and I heard them say, whatever his call number was, 5D7, we need you to respond to a so-and-so. And I said, oh, no, I'm saying that myself. Control, disregard, I can handle it. Because I knew that person going to escalate something or going to cause a problem. You had them kind of officers because they were so cocky, they were so gung-ho, and it ain't about the uniform. Because if you took his ass out of the uniform, he would still be the same person. Now, that uniform does give him a lot.
Let me stop you right there, because you just hit on something. And that goes into that officer's background and that officer's record. And when they started to pull that officer's record, you start to see that, oh, this is not his first rodeo. He done had TJ, you got the graphics that showed the number of complaints this officer had in his 20 years.
So I know what you're trying to say, but that ain't always the case. Because sometimes, let me tell you something, as a police officer, you're gonna have 100 complaints. If they'll tell you right off, if you don't get a complaint as a police officer, you ain't policing. Because you're gonna get people complain on you whether you do something right or do something bad. So if you look at those complaints, they're not always based on a true picture of who that officer may be, because a lot of times. But now I'm gonna get back. Yes, in his case, now we're talking. So what you're saying is true and right. What I'm saying, I don't want to make that label every police officer because they got something in there. You know, saying you look at they this and they that. Hell, they write you up sometimes because you missed court, and hell, they forgot to tell you the right court date. You know, you get rolled up for various things. Or in his case, if he had violent disciplinary action because of his interaction with the police department, I mean, with civilians, as they say. I hate using that word, but if he had actions that were not respectful or whatever, yeah, now they starting to develop a pattern. But what I'm trying to say to you, Tub, is we already know who these people are. As police officers, as people in your social circle, we know who they are without having to look into it. So we should then, but we should be looking into that person's background, not their background. They should be dealing with that, and for the most part, I've seen them do that. There's been some that get through the crack, but what I'm saying is that your record or whatever's in your file don't necessarily deplete who you are, because some of that stuff is just people mad because they got a ticket.
Okay, Jim.
Sometimes
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
but that does not negate the fact that this officer, now out of all of those complaints he had, I think it was like 26, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't really see the graphic, but at least 8 of them were substantiated. So that means there was some credible complaints in there. You know who else we see? It becomes a pattern when we start to see it. We saw it with Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. We saw it with the officers that shot Breonna Taylor. Every time we see, and I'm conflating this with the police shootings, but it shows a pattern. Every time we see negative interactions with the black community from certain officers, when we look into their backgrounds, we see the common denominator is they have complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint. And even though they're not showing the race of the people who complained about this officer, 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty sure that they were overwhelmingly black people. And
so
say, I heard people say that, okay, he's Hispanic, so how can he be racist? Well, you can be Hispanic and be racist. There are 2 different types of Hispanics. You have white Hispanics, you have black Hispanics. So, but
they're also there's because I'm an EEO specialist too, right? I work EEO cases.
Can you spell what that means? EEO.
So equal. That's when you're dealing with, in a nutshell, dealing with discrimination. So we have 7 disparate treatment, whether that be race, sex, religion. It's also, here's the big one: color, gender. So color is another thing. There are black people that are racist toward other black people. There's light-skinned blacks that are racist toward dark-skinned blacks.
That's not
so
racist,
when we
that's prejudice, that's a difference.
No. Now that's a whole nother debate. And I'm doing what I do. No, there are some black people that are actually racist toward other blacks. We say it's not. But anytime that you show any disparate treatment, whether it's based on any of those things, we have to label that the same. It's racist. Or now we can say a person, like there's some people that are racist and some people who are separatists. Some people may say, I want fair treatment for everyone, yet I don't want to be grouped with everyone. I don't want to see no one mistreated, but I believe, like the Jewish community, and no disrespect to them, a lot of these communities are tight knit. They work within their communities. That doesn't mean I won't hire someone or work with someone, but mainly is within their committee. Are they racist or are they just separatists? Like they believe in their religion, they believe in what they do. And any outside people, I don't look at you as being racist, but you don't fit in with us. Even in the Muslim groups, like if you, it's their beliefs. So when we say racism, it has to be defined with not a broad brush. It has to be defined with just a single stroke, because if you paint everyone into those things, then that also has to apply to anyone, no matter what race or creed you may be.
Now this is why I bring that up, because overwhelmingly, and I don't know for sure, but judging by his name and the way and his accent, I'm going to assume, and this is an assumption, that he's Cuban. Now, anybody familiar with Cuba knows that they have a strong anti-black sentiment in Cuba. Well, in the Cuban community, I'm gonna say that much. They don't like their own black people in their country. So when they come here, they don't have no problem falling into the system of American policing or the system of America, period. They have anti-black sentiments already. And that's what I feel like got brought into this situation with this officer. Ego was involved in that. Anytime you have your white counterparts, everybody, all the other officers, if you listen to the background chatter, they will say, hey man, this Tyreek Hill, he played for the Miami Dolphins. Is this really necessary on game day? Like they knew this was a
So Tub, let me say this here.
I gotta say something too.
Okay, go ahead,
Tyrone. Go ahead, Jerry. Okay, I just want to say this now. They didn't necessarily we can't say that all the officers knew who he was, because I think there is a scene in there where an officer did come up and knew that did know who he was and say, hey, do you know that's Tyreek Hill? And the guy was like, no. So I'm not going to say just because he's Tyreek Hill, he should get, treated a certain way. I mean, Tyreek Hill came into this thing hot, and he was late. He was running late. He was speeding through a construction site where he could have ran over fans, and he didn't have his own seatbelt on. He could have killed himself and other people on the way to a game. So in a way, they really saved him from something major as well. And then his attitude starting off the whole thing, he kicked this whole thing off in the wrong direction. Now, but technically, can he do that? Yes, he can. So there are some technicalities there, but I think that Tyreek started this whole thing in this particular situation. Not saying that there's not racism, there's not cops against blacks, et cetera, or cops against any race, but Tyreek had no business acting the way he was acting. Like, he has to take accountability, which he did not do until the body cam video came out. Take accountability for how he was interacting with the police, because none of us on this screen would tell our kids to act that way towards the police. Now, I mean, that's one layer to it. Now, after that, the technicalities and how he was treated and how he was thrown to the ground and all that, which we're going to talk about later, I think some of us will not agree with how he was handled. But the initial, just want to talk about the initial interaction. In my opinion, the initial interaction, I think Tyreek kicked this whole thing off wrong. Now, for that officer, you have to be the bigger man in the situation because of your position, in my opinion, that you can't let the way Tyreek talking to you and doing things like that lead to you losing your cool and then treating him improper. So I think there's a lot of blame in him, and then the officer that also came in on how they treated Tyreek after that. Now, I mean, I think that that's fair enough to say on that. So with that said, gentlemen, y'all can go ahead and continue.
So let me, Tub, I want you to understand that what you're saying, brother, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm not on the officer's side or anything, because I think they were wrong, because I think Tyrone mentioned it too. We are trained to try to de-escalate a situation. Now, the law allows us to what we call continuing of force, to escalate 2 levels of force higher than whatever force you may bring. But we're not here yet, okay? Not then, not in that situation. The officer should have had enough. He has to be a better person and understand, because we're trained in diversity, understanding certain situations. Like they'll teach you in the Asian community, right? They teach us things to look out for. In the Asian community, the women follow the men. The women walk behind the men, just understanding their culture. Like if you go and try to talk to one of them, their women, while their man is there, they may not respond to you because of the matter of respect and talking to the man. So another thing, they teach you things, what to look out for. You pull over a Hispanic dude. If he takes his hat off, you better get ready because he's about to fight you. Those are just signs that have been proven. It doesn't mean you saw it punching. It just means make your sense of awareness go up. Let me be aware of this situation. Okay, this could escalate. Let me be prepared. So what I'm saying is the officer got to understand Tyreek. He's Tyreek Hill. He's speeding. He's this. He's frustrated because he pulled over. The officer should have just taken a moment, digest all of that, and understood the situation and said, okay, as Tubb has said, I'm going to calm myself down, or I'm going to be the better person here. I'm going to say, Mr. Hill, can you tell me why you won't roll your window down, sir? Is there a reason? Is something going on? We could have handled that. Now, it doesn't alleviate Tyreek Hill from doing the same thing. My problem here is that I think, I'm going to tell you my personal experience, my personal feelings. I won't just interject it was a racist thing, because I can't really say that, and I don't want to paint it with that. But could it have some racial undertones? I think so. I think when I went back saying that officer who's an asshole, and everybody know that one officer that came and shoved Tyreek to the ground because he didn't want to sit down. He was the one trying to put his knee in his back. He's just that type of officer. And yes, Tubb, he got a lot of complaints, and his complaints need to be followed up. What I was saying earlier about like looking at other complaints, you got to know your personnel. If you know I got an officer here, he's a good officer, we don't have a problem. Yeah, he's still gonna have a complaint, but this ain't the type of officer, because we got friends that we know who they are. They knew this. I guarantee you they've been knowing this motherfucker's an asshole. This motherfucker do shit like this here. And so, but I don't want to paint it as if, okay, everybody is like that. No, we have some in these departments that are like that. There may be small community type department where they grew up in a town that was known for races, and maybe some of that carry over. We have some of that now. We have it in the military, but I don't want to paint it by everyone. I don't want to paint it to continue. Yes, you got to comply, because it's almost like an oxymoron in what you're saying, right? You're saying, hey son, hey daughter, when the police pull you over, shut up. Put your hands on the steering wheel. Do what you got to do. Then why, if we teach our kids that, is it okay to say, roll your window up on him? So, and I didn't say that you said that he did that. But what I'm saying is, basically what you're teaching your kids is survive the moment and we can deal with it later. Do not escalate the moment, because police officer, when they pull you over, they'll tell you one of the top scariest thing in the world, in the top 10, police pulling you over as a traffic ticket, probably number in the top 5. Even if you're a cop, they'll tell you that. And then when you don't comply, what we teach in our community, black and brown people, is that these things are happening more to us, right? So comply, completely comply. Tyreek Hill said it himself. He said, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? What if this was just Jerry Galloway? It could. So we have to teach all of that. So Tyreek, by you saying that, by you rolling your window, guess what? Someone in the community watching you, and the police gonna pull them over, and they're gonna do the same thing, but the results are gonna be different.
Well, see, this is my issue. This is my issue with what you said there. Now, I agree. I teach my children, hey man, don't be out here just because you see, you looking at YouTube and TikTok, and you see the white kids bucking at the police officers and cussing them out, talking about this. You can't do that. That's how I teach my children. But
okay, remember that before you go in far. I just want you to remember that part, what you just said. I'm gonna come back to something. Go ahead.
Said before. I tell mine, we fight court in court, not in the streets.
Mhm.
Fight it in the streets, that's how you end up getting shot. But that's how I teach my children. Nobody in my community is obligated to teach their children that. It behooves you to do it. It behooves you. But when we're living in a society where they looking at their counterparts, they go to school with these kids their age, and how they interact with the police, and they looking at it like, why can't we do that? See, what I see a lot of times happening with our children and our children's children in some cases, they don't have that historical reference to us coming out of the civil rights era and how stuff was segregated before and how we were forced to move.
Right.
We're what, 60 years removed from So
they have no idea. Yeah.
Our generation did, because we were raised by the first generation of children after integration. So we were told these things. These children are looking at, hey, this is and I don't mean to call Tyreek Hill a child, but these younger adults.
He is a child. He's a child. He matches that group, that Gen X type group right before them too. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're looking at it like, why can't I do the same thing
like everybody else?
And like everybody else? They don't understand it. We've done a lot of times Gen X and Gen Z in some cases.
Right.
We've done them a disservice and not for the realities of life.
There you go.
We told them everything is equal and we live in the post-segregation society.
Yeah.
And it ain't.
It ain't.
That part is on us.
Yep. Man, you said I want to thank. I want, before you go any further, I want to thank you for what you just said, because that is the big the Gen Z and prior to them, that is where we fail to understand, because we have not educated our young men and women out here that you're not entitled to it. We would think we're entitled to these things, and we have come a long way and we have a right. We've had a black president and things are different. No, what is shown, we can do whatever we want to do, but things have not changed. They're just under the cover of light. They're not under the cover of darkness no more. It's light where you just can't see it because it's blended in. So we fail to educate them on the history, like you're saying. But go ahead, man.
But that's pretty much how I look at the whole situation. I don't like his response. All that twin talking. What's going on?
Right.
Doing me like that.
Right.
You are a fucking prisoner of war. Act like
it.
Like it, black people. I know it's I know it ain't no good. I've been there. You talking to a 1994. I was pulled out my car and beat by the police.
Oh my God.
No, it ain't fair.
No, it ain't fair. It ain't fair. And then imagine how many.
I don't teach my children what's fair, what's not. I teach you how to survive.
Yep. And what did let's just mention this a little bit. What did Dr. King teach and some of the other civil rights leaders teach? We didn't teach by an eye for an eye, or you go out and you do this. Or even Michelle Obama said it better, right? When they go low, we go high, right? And we continue to do that. I know there's a certain level to that. And that's really based on the individual, how much you can take, and especially if you've been through something such as what you've been through. I've had my own bouts with the police too. Luckily, I was able to say things where they said, okay, he kind of know what he's talking about, or hey, I'm a former police officer myself. Like, I normally don't bring that out unless they starting to say something stupid that I know is wrong. And but where we fail, we still got to educate our kids on. You got to understand that you just can't. We just can't. Sorry about being off track. So I was talking about I was with my cousins, and I just came from RYDC seeing my other little cousin. He got arrested last week over some of this same stupid stuff, right? Being involved with some of his boys on the street. We got 13-year-old kids. They're just baffling me. They out here selling weed. They selling drugs. They carrying guns. I'm like, I'm blown away. 13-year-old middle school, they packing now. They carrying. I don't mean just to be saying it in general. I mean they are legitimately packing. They are throwing up gang sign. The little kid, one of the little kid, my cousin is 15. The little 13-year-old kid, my cousin brother got hit by one of the boys in the face with a football and gave him a concussion. And the boy intentionally hit him in the face with a helmet. Now that's his older brother. So his older brother trying to get back at him, rightfully so. Right? You don't gave him a concussion, bust his nose open. Yeah, I'm gonna get you. But the problem is, you dealing with these boys out here on the street, and the one boy come up to you, say, "Hey man," and if I can say this, I'm gonna try. He said, "Hey man, I heard you looking for so and so." He was like, "Yeah, man, he hit my little brother." He said, "But I ain't gonna worry about it. We'll get at him later." And the dude was like, "No, man, me and my little ends." My little ends, he 13 years old. How the hell you got some little ends? like you the kingpin. Your other 13-year-old, they finna rob him for his dope.
Jerry, can I tell you something, bro? That's not relegated to this generation. That's been going on since the 60s.
I get that, but what am
60s? We've had in the community since the 60s. Nothing new. These kids ain't going through nothing new. We've had 13-year-old gangbangers when I was growing up. Hell, I was. We did
too. Hey,
that's not exclusive, and that's also not. And then the reason I bring that up, that's also not exclusive to the black community. If you know, Georgia,
it's not.
Georgia had the biggest gang bust in Georgia was not a black gang. It was a white gang. It was a white gang up in North Georgia. That was the biggest gang bust in the state of Georgia.
So I know about that because I was part of the gang task force, and there's I went through a training called Viper. I can tell you about some gangs that are worth, and there are some white gangs. In fact, there are militia groups that are, some are white, some are black. And these militia groups are working together because at the end of the day, their common goal, they all have one common enemy, and that is the government. So they will work with each other. The Klan is working with black groups because at the end of the day, let's overthrow the government. Let's get rid of this government system. Let's do away with that. And once we deal away with that, you can go your way. You take half, I take half. We can war with each other then. So what you're saying, I get it. I'm not making it unique. What I brought in by Dr. King and all of this is that there were people in your community that was trying to speak up against it. People that was out there on the streets trying to help, trying to do this, talking about, hey, we don't have to do it this way. Where I feel like we have failed is that, and you said it earlier, we have not continued to educate our people. Yes, they're going to do it at 13, 14, 15, but it's back then at 13 and 14, it wasn't just so readily available. Every 13 didn't just embrace it. Now it's like they embrace it. Like there were some that we knew were doing these things, but now when I got 10, 13-year-olds, no, I might have had one or two that was out there with the older kids. But now it's just so fully embraced is what I'm saying. And we don't have people that, and then their parents know. One of the kids told me today that he came out the womb as a Crip. His mama is a Crip. His daddy was a Crip. His granddaddy was a Crip. And his mama carry guns, and he's 12 and he carry gun. They all packed in her.
That especially when you look at places like Chicago, Memphis, Mississippi.
I get that. I know where you're going. Yeah.
We are talking fourth generation. Fourth generation gangbang. You know, not me, but they hey man, my great granddaddy was Crippin'. And when you think about it, put it in that mindset, I get it. But none of that.
I get it.
Hold on, but none of that justifies the treatment that we get as a community by the police. Because guess what other community is fourth generation into gangs? White people.
Oh, white.
Asian people are like second or third. Hispanics. Every group has gangs. Every group's percentage of their population that are gang members are pretty much the same across the board. We commit crimes at pretty much the same rate across the board. We get convicted more as black people.
Well, that's that. Yeah.
That's where the breakdown starts to happen. Is not who's committing the crime, who's getting convicted of the crime.
Well, that's
our racial counterparts get. So knowing that's why I say the way I train my children is to make it home. Dad will fight.
So,
I got I ain't got much paper, but I got a little paper to fight a couple cases.
well, we'll get whatever paper we got to get and where we got to get it from to help our kids and ourselves. So I agree. Everything you're saying, I agree. The other thing I would say that, see, this is a problem. It ain't a problem because I was an officer. I'm going to do what I got to do. I got kids and I got a family. One of the things they teach the officers is you go home at night. So they'll tell you quickly, it's better to be tried by 12 than carried out by 6. That is a universal thing where the police, I guarantee you, every police in this country have heard that. You go home to your family at night. You survive the moment. Now, the reason why, and they ain't justifying that, I think I think that one officer, I think he was a fucking bully. I've dealt with them kind of officers. I ain't just making him out to be a racist. He would be an asshole to somebody white, but he probably be more of an asshole to somebody black. It is not the ones that are so blatant that scares me, because I know who you are. It's the ones going around here now. Like I got officers I work with now, used to work with now. They're posting stuff with this Trump thing. Now people I never thought were like that. Now they're showing their colors. Now they're saying things to say, well, damn, but it's been in them the whole time. Them the ones that scare me. The one that I know is an asshole and was a racist, or you want to call him a racist or whatever, I knew him up front. I knew who he was. I can go in the department. You can pick them out and everybody knew it. That's the one. So like,
I'm sorry. Until I just want to throw this in, guys. So let's go back to this thing right here, where he was pulled. Tyreek was pulled out of the vehicle, right? What did he do that warranted him being pulled out the vehicle?
He should never have been pulled out of the vehicle. They were wrong. Tyreek Hill obviously was on the phone trying to say, you knew who this man was and what was kind of going on, right? I don't know if he said, I'm trying to get to my game or whatever, but I did hear Tyreek Hill say that I'm coming out of the vehicle. He wasn't moving fast enough for him. And sometimes you'll get a person that being a little smart ass ain't moving fast enough. But if he's making the attempt, the officer, at that point, the officer had kind of lost what we would say in a police world. You lost control of that scene because you allowed your emotions to in line with his emotion. You should have been just set back, allow him to exit the vehicle. If it took him 30 minutes to get out, this is just over exaggerate. But if it took him, let's say 5 minutes to get out of the vehicle, if you have control of him, you can see what he's doing. You have to take the importance of who he is. He say, hey man, I'm calling my agent. It's all about the communication. The initial officer lost control of the scene. The other officer that came in and was going to initiate pulling him out of the vehicle, he really shouldn't have had no emotional attachment to it. And I guess in a way he could say he didn't. He just pulled him out. But yeah. I mean, the second officer, the original officer said, hey man, no problem. We don't need that. He said he's complying. Give him a few minutes to let him get out. Okay. He pulled him out, put him on the ground, immediately started handcuffing him. Right now, if it was a fight, he ain't got to tell him why he's trying. It's obvious I'm trying to get you under control. But Tyreek wasn't being combative, not physically where you needed to get him in control. They trying to say he wasn't complying. He was complying.
There's nothing wrong with being an asshole. I'm an asshole.
But yeah, people tell me I'm an asshole, so I'll be like, okay.
I think they both were in that case. They both were assholes in this case.
They both were. But Tyreek Hill had the right to be an asshole.
Correct. And I'm glad you guys, right. And I'm glad that's what you're all bringing up on this episode, is that because these are those layers that you don't necessarily get, on the regular broadcast and things like that, is that, he did have the right to act the way he did, even though, in my opinion and others, that's not the way to act. You know what I'm saying? So there is layers to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Tyrone, for clearing that up. 'Cause to that, I think in my rebuttal to some of the things you may have said, I think that's what I'm saying. It's not that you don't have the right, but we know how, right? We know how we should probably react, and so that's why I'm careful about what I say because I don't want people to have a green light to say something that feel like they can just do it. Yes, you can, but is it the right thing to do? No. You
And
know,
Yeah.
we're in lockstep on that. Now I've
Yeah.
said many a times, I don't advocate for us to get out there hooping and hollering and being no. I don't move like that. Even though it may come across on when I'm online and on these platforms that that's the type of person I am. It's not. When I'm out in
no,
these,
bro.
I move like how I'm supposed to move.
The move,
Yeah.
right?
There you go. There you
You
go.
understand? I've been on
It,
this
it,
earth 40 some odd years to
yeah.
know that how I'm going to be treated by law enforcement. It's not going to
But
be the same as anybody else. So that's what I instill into not just my kids, but my nieces and nephews and any
Hmm.
young black kids that are around me. I teach you
so
how to move in those certain situations. Don't make me
so let me
follow.
Right.
so let me ask you a question right quick
Uh-huh.
on what you just said. I don't disagree with you, but I'm trying to open this. I'm trying to rationalize this for my mind and all our mindset. We teach our kids how they should react in certain circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but is it always? I think I lost my train of thought. But is it always about? Sheesh, I may have to come back to it, guys. I'm sorry. But what I'm
Oh,
trying to
that's all right.
but what I'm trying to say is, I know it's the right thing to say, hey, son or daughter, I know this may not be right, and you may feel like, why I gotta act like that? Because these things are historically happening to us. Historically we don't see it happen to the other community or has that effect. Or historically, if I'm a white doctor or a white lawyer or someone in the public eye, it may not happen. But we also see that a courtesy extended to who you are as a person, whether it's a Tyreek Hill, whether it's I can get the courtesy extended to me because I was a police officer. So if I get stopped somewhere, I was a police. Oh, that's Jerry, so and so.
Hmm.
So I guess, like for me, I know racism exists. I know there are racist cops, just like I know there is racist doctors, racist military people, racist people all over this world. And sometimes there are so many good officers that now they get painted with that broad brush and they're not like that. And then sometimes it's almost like the community forced them to take a side because society has forced them to take a side because as soon as we see a white man and he pull up a black man, regardless of the situation, we immediately think that that white
Mm.
officer is violating his rights and doing something wrong. And in the reality, like we used to say, people say, "Oh, don't profile them." They profile. I worked in. Anybody knew about East Macon? It used to be a high crime area, high drug area. If I see someone rolling through the hood at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, just creeping apart in an alley somewhere, or someone I know my neighborhood that I patrol, and I pull you over, and I've had those incidents would be a particular black guy. I know you sell dope. Everybody in the community sell dope. I know what you out here doing. If I pull you over, I ain't profiling you, cause we all know you doing what you doing. We know
But
the
see,
shit that you doing. But what
Pastor
I'm
Jerry,
getting at it,
this, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think what happens because you on the train of thought that I can respond to.
mhm,
I
go ahead.
think what happens a lot of times is we conflate racism with white supremacy. That's two different things. Now, racism is more on an individual level. This
White
individual
supremacy
walk
is a,
around
yeah.
nigga every five words. That's a racist. I speak more towards the system of white supremacy that upholds that these white people get treated different from us, or these groups of people get treated different from us. And that's what I think because you own it. When we talk to our children, that's what we have to explain to them. But what I'm seeing so often with my people is that a lot of us don't understand the system of white supremacy. Neely Fuller said, if you don't understand the system of white supremacy, everything else will confuse you.
So,
Well,
so
and-
with
One of the
with that,
statements I've ever heard.
so let me ask you this, Tub. How does that translate? And I'm not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not being how do we say it? I'm not challenging. I'm just trying to
No, I
understand.
don't mind.
So when we speak on white supremacists or even racism, because I got some rebuttals to that, okay? So when we speak on that, and forgive me because I told you I do litigation work, so I'm speaking the way I'm. But anyway, when we talk about white supremacy, how does that kind of, in your mind, relate to the Tyreek Hill situation or relate to policing?
How it relates to policing as in general is that
Yeah.
just speaks what we were talking about. Understanding that how you're treated by the police systemically, that's system-wide, is going to be different from every other group of people, including Hispanic. That's why I don't use black and brown, because the brown don't get, it was the brown that did this in this situation. And the
Right.
brown normally get treated like us. When you see the brown get treated like us, it's a good chance that they deserve whatever they were doing something that warranted it. So that's why I don't use the term black and brown. Now, that's when we explain the white supremacy, that's what I mean systemic. Is this is what normally happens if you do this, even though other groups of people can do the exact same thing and get different outcomes. So that's the difference in my mind. And that's where I think we need to start educating ourselves and educating our children at, is explaining these differences. Letting them know,
So
yes,
when you,
the world ain't fair. It's not going
so
to be fair.
when you say white supremacy, I'm tracking. I just want to make sure my comment is in line. When we say white supremacists, are you transitioning that to say anytime a white officer, and I agree with you when you're saying about the Hispanic thing, a white officer or Hispanic or someone other than your race pull you over, this is how we react to this, regardless if we're wrong. Now, I'm not saying that we should just do whatever. If we have done, let's say, son, if you ran the red light and you know you ran the red light or whatever you done, if the officer pull you over and he's white or any other race other than black, these are your protocols. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I say. My protocols,
Okay.
depending on the race of the officer, my protocol came across the board because, like you said, I don't know. You hit on
Okay.
something. I mean, you made a lot of good points. We,
Yeah.
public, don't know the good officers from the bad. We don't know until something happens. So I can't
There you
determine whether this black officer coming up to me is a good officer or not. So my reaction to every scenario is the same. I don't answer questions. I roll my window down. You're gonna get 3 pieces of ID from me. You're gonna get a driver's license, you're gonna get insurance card, and you're gonna get a concealed carry card.
Okay.
So that lets you know everything you need to know about me.
And you left out something else, Hot Tub.
You don't have to ask me if I'm armed.
And you left out something else. It's slow movements. No sudden movements.
I'm armed right now in the car.
And no sudden movements. Hot Tub.
So he said no sudden movements. So one thing I wanted to touch on too. Okay, so I get that. I get what you're saying, and I agree with that. I think when I say paint it with a broad brush, I think when we talk to our kids, if you say historically, if you look at what's going on, especially if you know a community has a history of the policing is like that, right? And that they do these things. But also, yes, okay, protocol goes in. Okay, I got a white officer. I don't know you, right? There also should be protocol for black, whatever, Hispanic, whatever, because if law enforcement are doing things that we as a public hadn't been educated on the way they're trained and how they're supposed to do their job, then protocol needs to kick in no matter whether you're black or white, but especially if you're a white officer, if I'm teaching my kids, because not necessarily, son, that I'm saying that the white officer that is approaching you is a white supremacist or a racist. I'm telling you that historically things that have happened to black people have been initiated from white officers or other officers. I'm not kicking in your mind. I'm making a statement, and I'm also agreeing with you too. I'm not kicking in my mind that immediately you're supposed to label this officer as racist, because kids get confused and they think, oh, why is he pulling him over? You white. And that white officer,
Mm-hmm.
like I saw one white officer on a show, the guy was pulling him over, said, you racist, you don't like black people. He said, but my wife is black. So it's like, so no, I get what you're saying. You still can have those. But what I'm saying is, what you're saying is correct. Protocol, when police pull you over, that's how I teach my kids. Police pull you over, this is what we do.
Okay. Oh,
And
yep.
don't be disrespectful. But if a white officer is pulling you over, then son or daughter, definitely make sure that you follow the protocol because of the historical facts that are showing, right?
There you go.
I'm
Yep.
not trying to label this white officers immediately as racist. I don't want the kids to carry that over, because he might be the best officer in the world. The black officer might pull you over was an asshole. I've seen that. I know a lot of white officers that are great personality, and a lot of times, if that officer pull you over, sometimes it's based on his interaction with you, right? Based on your interaction with him. He may pull someone, hey Tub, how you doing, man, bro? Look, man, I'm sorry I had to pull you over, man, but by the state of such and such, you were speeding, and you was doing 80 and a 60. Here's the thing what they stop officers from doing, and they should stop doing that. Any reason why you were speeding? Now, sometimes, that's when you may want to invoke Miranda, right? Sometimes the officer,
He had no idea.
Sometimes now the officer just being genuine, because he might finna let you go. You might say, hey man, the reason why I'm speeding, officer, to be honest, I gotta go boo boo. I've seen that happen to me. And the dude was serious, say, bro, if you gonna write me a ticket, man, hurry up, bro, because I can't hold it. I can sympathize with that, right? I just say, hey man, you good, bro. Go on, take care of your business. Just slow it up a little bit, right? He might have been lying, but it was just based on how he treated me. He didn't give me okay, here's my ID, and I'm not gonna say anything to you. You know what I'm saying? It's like based on the treatment of the officer, because if we immediately kick the protocol going in, no matter what. But now the extra to the protocol, because I'm dealing with someone that's different, then we gotta weigh that out. We gotta play it by eye. That's why I say we got to take it one stroke at a time and say, okay, no, he's cool. He ain't overly doing his job. He ain't doing this, that, and that. I follow the protocol. And so now,
Jerry. Oh, go ahead, finish your thought, Jerry. Finish your thought, because I just want to throw something in there.
But now I don't have to paint here, and now I can interact with him, because I know he's not out to try to hurt me. He's not trying to do anything. I can communicate with him. If Tyreek Hill, I don't think this officer was on that kind of mission with Tyreek Hill. I feel like the officer that pulled him over, I felt like his approach was a little too aggressive as well. I think it's really, you got to be understanding public relations. Nobody want to get a ticket. Nobody want to know, with the society we in, white officers and everybody got to understand the heightened sense of vulnerability that people feel they're in. They feel disrespectful, especially the black community.
And this right here, guys. And this right here, guys. Based on how many times I've watched this over and over again now, and I try to put pieces to this together, it stems off both ends of this, right? If the candle's burning on both ends, if Tyreek Hill was probably in a hurry to get to where he had to get, which is whatever time he's supposed to arrive without getting fined, things like that. So he's in a hurry. He has a $350,000 vehicle that can fly like a spaceship. So he's on the move. He's going through a dangerous zone, but his mindset is, I got to get here. The officer has to pull him over, because that's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? The way he was driving and carrying on to get to the game. But the way that he reacted to the officer, that kicked this whole thing off. And that's where I think is being left out in the media. In the media, the most important thing to me, and this is not trying to throw blame or make one side look better than the other. I'm looking at this strictly for people like him, people like myself, and whoever else, is that you have to conduct yourself in a certain way to save not only your life, but even the officers or even people around. Because think about this. If Tyreek Hill did not initially act the way he acted and was very dismissive, we're not even in this position today. If the officer didn't react the way he did, we're not even in this position today. And this leads me to something else, gentlemen. Okay, there were some other players, some teammates that arrived as well. And I believe if they would have stayed out of it too, it doesn't get heightened even more because a lot more people, in my opinion, were put in a bad position by bystanders trying to get involved and see what's going on. So but I definitely want to get you guys take on that too, like Calais Campbell, which is his
Mhm.
teammate, and some other teammates pulled over, and the officers, on the video, they're telling them go, get away from the officer perspective. Are they doing the right thing by telling them to get out of here? They even set boundaries, saying stand by this car, but the teammate didn't do that. They moved in closer. So talk about that too, gentlemen. Like if like let's just say Tony, you get pulled over and I'm riding down the street and I see you pulled over and I see that you're on the ground and they got officers on you and I pull over to say, hey, what's going on with my boy? What should we be doing in that situation?
For me, from my personal experience, and this is from my personal experience in dealing with these situations, I've been in
Yes.
this before. Now they're gonna tell you you can't impede their investigation, and that is true.
Okay.
Reasonable amount of distance away from it. But what
Yep.
I've seen way too many times from officers is that they use that to say, okay, you have to be over here in this specific area. Nothing
Okay.
at all, and it's state by state at this point. So I don't know the law in Florida, but I'm doing it. Nothing that states that I have to be in a specific spot. It gives you a certain number of feet away from the incident that you can be. Now,
Okay.
a lot of people, this is where we make our mistake at. Our cameras on these phones are amazing. I don't need to be right there on it. And I
Yeah.
don't yelling and a distraction. I get on my family about this. If you're gonna record me in an interaction, don't you say nothing. Just record. I don't need a female in the background. What he do? What he do? Why you? I don't need that. I don't need my sons doing that. Record the
Yeah.
incident. Stand back there, record it. I just want you to show them how they treated me. I don't need you to do it because at that point in time, they're going to focus on you and they're going to lock you up because you are doing the right thing by recording this. They don't want no record of this arrest. So the more you can, I try to tell us, keep your composure in these incidents. Don't get emotional. I get emotional here. When I'm in the streets, when I'm in front of these police, when I'm dealing with situations, I got to take emotion out of it. Because if I don't, I'm going to end up dead.
Mm.
And that goes for bystanders too. Look at what happened to the girl in George Floyd's incident. The girl that recorded it got death threats from the police and police sympathizers. They harassed their family to the point so much that they had to leave Minneapolis. They don't talk about that. You are not, if you're the person recording it, they don't, the media does not show what you go through. And
Well,
you go through a lot, especially if it's a case to where you have to testify at a certain point. You should just expect that harassment. So what you want to do is lessen that harassment as much as possible. Don't say nothing on camera. Just allow it to play out. So that you can say that you were a distraction or what you said misconstrued the situation. No, I showed you exactly what happened.
so I say this right here. I think Tub, you said it absolutely correct. I think that with the recording, I think that this thing is gonna get worse if we don't understand that, right? The officer does have some boundaries. We got to understand that officer don't know who you are. You may say, I'm his brother, I'm his mother, I'm his friend, I'm just a bystander. Okay, I don't have a problem, but don't be within a certain feet of us. Allow us to operate. Because what people fail to realize in the public when it's shown, a lot of officers have had situations where they've been attacked, been killed, or whatever, or where they were trying to protect someone where they had someone they got killed, right? That the individual they're trying to arrest, not due to the officer, but neglect from other people. Had showed a film where they had the guy detained for a minute, and other people were coming around trying to say something, and he took off running. Where they encouraged him to run, and he kept running down the road, got hit by a car. So it's like, so officers have to be aware of those things, but also got to understand that we're in those times. Allow those people their personal space if they want to record. We don't have to be mad about them recording, because guess what? We should be recording as well. We should want this, right? It is mandated, and most agencies are mandated, okay, that is recorded, that you wear body cam. So what I say about his teammate, kudos to them for having this awareness, but do you think if Tubb and I just got pulled over and a white officer is pulling me a Tubb over, how many people are going, if they're not necessarily our friends, are just gonna pull over and do those same things if they're not already on the scene? Most of the time, they're not gonna do that. If Tyreek Hill friends recognized him, they should have just let the officer say, "Hey, officer, what's going on? We're not here to interfere. This is our teammate. We're on the way to the game. We want to make sure he's okay." Not, "Why are you doing all this to him? Why are you doing that?" Now the law has permitted for them to at least detain you, because they could say you're hindering their investigation, or you being disorderly. So if you're willing to accept the charges that may come with that, then by all means do that. But like Tubb said, I don't need you to instigate it anymore, because guess who's gonna get hurt more? You're gonna get involved, and then now it's gonna make whatever I've done seem even more magnified to them. And so now just do your job at a safe distance. You ain't got to put yourself in it, because it'll play out right or wrong. But I think it all comes from communication. I think that we have a lot of officers, and I ain't making no excuses for nobody. That's why I said the person is the person. Uniform or no uniform, they are the person. Okay, if he or she is whoever they are, black, white, or whatever, they are that person. I've seen it too many times. Oh man, I don't mess with that dude. Do you? No, bro, that dude, this, that, and the other. Dude, I know a dude was a racist, and on the police department, he showed racist tendency. I remember he tried to get one of my best friends in trouble. You know, he had made a mistake, had some marijuana, and he had it all bagged up to put in the evidence locker when he was going home. He just so happened to go meet up with his girlfriend over at the park, at the lake, and park security came by and detained him. They didn't know what was going on. When the supervisor came by, they told the supervisor about it. He came out. Well, he tried to get him fired and write him up for all that. Not necessarily because of the incident. It wasn't nothing. He had it bagged and tagged and in his trunk. I've had evidence that I'm supposed to turn into the crime lab. It's late at night. I said I'll do it in the morning. It allows for me to do that as long as I get it in. But in this case, this particular officer was white, our supervisor, and he was notorious getting black. He hated me. He used to call me, "Oh, he's the golden boy," because I was good at my job. I was SWAT. I did all these other things. So people like me in the department, "Oh, look at the golden boy." So he did anything he could to try to, I won't say anything he could, but anything that I would have done wrong, he was going to be on me. I remember one day we came into the office. I was working gang task force, and there were two officers, one Hispanic, one white. Now, I know these two guys. They good guys. For as I know, it started making me question it after I seen what I seen. Now, I'm the only black dude in this particular office with them. Well, when I come to the office, coming in the office, there's a voodoo doll, a black voodoo doll hanging from a ruler with a noose around the neck. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, what the heck? I see this and I hit the roof. I take pictures of it. I don't take it down. I leave it, take pictures. I go right downtown. to our main office, of course. We were just at another precinct and take pictures of my captain. They do an investigation on it. And when I heard who did it, the two guys, I was surprised. But it was the two officers, they were playing with each other. The one of them called himself hanging a voodoo doll up and stuck a pin in it like he was putting a curse on the other officer. They were playing. Then wasn't thinking about the sensitivity of it and how it could, if someone black saw it or whatever. They were too busy joking around with each other. They didn't see the sensitivity in it. But then now it made me question them, because you should see sensitivity in that.
Yeah.
You should say, I'm not going to do this because someone may perceive this is wrong. If I leave that up there, I don't know when this other officer is going to come in the office and see it and he realizes it's me. There's other people in this office. So now your sensitivity should be, we all should have a sensitivity to race and what we say and how we interact with other races. So even though I knew they didn't mean it toward me, it still made me look at them a little different. It made me be more cautious around them.
Yeah. And I just feel like, with like what we're talking about here is the importance of when you're trying to be the bystander, you want to step in and check, like there's protocol in place, there's laws in place, there's things like that. So just because you think that you're doing something noble or you're doing something right for your, in this case, your teammate, you could be doing something wrong and you can get locked up. So, and again, I'm saying all these things because these are the things that I believe needs to be really emphasized even more so than just saying it's because Tyreek was a black man and this and that. Because that Tyreek is a special one of one. Everybody's not Tyreek Hill. Everybody's not an NFL player or a superstar, whatever you want to call it.
That's right.
So he actually got away with handling the situation the way he did.
He got away with it.
We may have gotten away with it.
Yeah, he got away with Tyreek Hill. Because he
was
otherwise.
The show in itself.
Oh yeah.
Is showing Black America how you should react in these situations. Because every age that I know has a story of a negative interaction with a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
But are you relating that to your children and outside?
Correct.
And that's what I in my community is when I see the kids, because we got one of them communities where the kids are outside. They always walking, always hanging out with their friends. But we know our children in the community. The police come through here because I live in the all black, middle black neighborhood. And it's the hood, but it's nice neighborhood. The police come through here all the time. And when they see the black kids walking through here, they have a tendency to stop. They want to just fuck with them for no reason.
So let me ask you that. Why do we know? So I wanted not to interrupt you. I just need that train to go back to what I was saying earlier. Do they just, now there are some that get caught up because of others, right? But do we know they just fucking with them for no reason or messing with them for no reason? Or is it because this right here? They've had issue out of groups, the groups that are doing this stuff that causes the officers to be in the area. And so now other folks are having to deal with what these other knuckleheads have been doing. Like the area I was talking about, my cousin. We know for a fact that this group over here, these kids been over here robbing people, doing all this other stuff. But there's another group that are not doing it. But the officers that are coming over having to patrol the neighborhood for that. So they're checking these other kids that may not have nothing to do with it. How do the officer know? How does he distinguish which one is which? Is it that he's just trying to figure out what's going on, trying to make sure we're safe and carry on? Or do we know for a fact that that's his mission, is just to mess with them? And how do we articulate that from being good or bad?
I'm glad you asked that, because this goes back to a case that happened in 2013 in my community when they said that they were looking for an individual that was breaking in houses.
Okay.
Okay. We caught it. I had the homeowner call the police, then call me. I walked down. She said, "Can you check my house because my silent alarm is going off?" I saw the guys in there. Now, this is back in 2013. I got arrested. Well, let me say, I got detained. I called the police and said, "Hey," I gave them her address. I said, "This is what the description of the guy." The first officer on the scene pulled up and immediately put me in handcuffs. I didn't resist. I said, "Hey, okay." The guys who broke into the house were right across the street. They were building the house across the street. They were sitting there on top of the hill looking at the whole thing. I said, "Arrest me," but there they go right there. Detain them. That's who broke into the house. I'd be glad to answer your questions.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do that. The car that they rolled in on was parked. As soon as the officer pulled up, they pulled off. I said, "Stop that car." It take about 2 minutes to get out from the bottom of the neighborhood where I stay at to the top of the hill to leave the neighborhood. 3 different squad cars rolled past them. 3. That case right there was why they have to police my neighborhood the way they police it now. Because I filed a complaint about that. I said, "I don't mind you stopping me." I said, "But when I give you a description, when I'm telling you in ample enough time, and you still investigate." My neighbor came out and said, "He stay right here. He didn't break into the house. You look for the people that broke into the house." The officer said, "Yeah." She said, "There they go right there." Nobody stopped him. So that case right there, we brought that whole case back up. We end up getting the police chief the police officer at the time got fired. That case got brought up when election time came back, and that got the prosecutor at the time out of the county. So they said, "Well, what can we do with the city?" We went to the city hall meeting. They said, "What can we do to make this right? When you police this neighborhood, we are not a drug neighborhood. We don't have a drug problem in this neighborhood. Any outside entities that come to this neighborhood and commit any crimes like breaking in house, don't automatically assume that who you see, because this is a black neighborhood. We're not the people that's committing the crimes." That all of that came out of that was reforms that they put in place. This police department got a long file on me, but not something that get me arrested. How you interact with me is not how you gonna interact with the average black person. You're not finna do that to me, because you know it's gonna be consequences behind this. That man I know how to go to the city council. I know who my alderman is. I know who or my city council representative. I know who the mayor is. I know how to go to a council meeting and make a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to get across to my people.
Yeah.
It's how we deal with this situation. This is how we deal with it.
So let me ask you this though. So I heard what you said, and I agree with you. And I think in your situation when you got detained, because see, they got to understand what the meanings of those things are. Detained don't mean that you put handcuffs on me, because once you put handcuffs on someone, you are arresting them. And if you ain't arresting them, you are holding them against their will, which equates to a kidnap in a way, if you want to look at it. Now, if I don't know who you are, now there could be an emergency situation where it's a bank or something, or someone just got shot and they don't know, and they say, "Hey man, forgive me, I don't know who you are right now, but you may fit the description. I'm going to place these handcuffs on you just until we can find out who you are." Okay, it ain't I'm not arresting you. Just give me a minute to figure out who you are, and I'll take these off on you. In your case, they running up on you, putting handcuffs on you. They ain't got no information about nothing other than somebody breaking in the house. They're wrong in that situation. When I say now, in my scenario, I don't know what's going on. I pull up in the neighborhood. They say, "Hey, some guys got to fighting or whatever, right? These kids are breaking into houses over here." I don't know, because you're asking for my help. So what I'm going to do is try to police your community a little bit, try to learn. Yeah, at times it's a way that you can stop kids and talk, but get to know them, right? You don't have to treat them like they suspects and criminals. Say, hey guys, how you guys doing? You guys doing good today? Have a conversation, get to know them, get to know your players in the street, because in your area. Because even though in neighborhoods, we may say we don't have that, but we do, because we don't know what everybody do behind their doors. We may think we know everyone, right? But we don't necessarily know. Now, I will say that I know the kids in this neighborhood, like in my neighborhood where I live at. We live in a nice neighborhood, but on the other side, there's a little, I won't call it a trailer park because it'd be disrespectful. It's a nice area of marginal homes. But there are some kids that may be in a lower income bracket, maybe, I don't know, but they come in the neighborhood, and normally when we have issues I've heard about, it's been because they came in the neighborhood. But I guess what I'm saying is, we can't really just say that. I don't know if we can really say that we know someone's intent unless we know their intent, right? Like if the white officers come over there and he or she stops the black kid and just kind of want to know what's going on, just talking to them, is that a racist? Is that deemed as racism? Is that deemed as harassment?
If you talking to that child, if they're under the age of, depends on your state. I know Georgia is 17, if I'm not mistaken. If they're under that age and you talking to them without a parent or guardian present, that's a problem.
So let me say this right here. Let me say this right here. So, because I know for a fact, and I just got to dealing with this myself, okay? So I want to make sure if anybody that listening to this or listen to this, that they understand the law. In Georgia or any law, an officer has the right to ask your child a question, right? Now, they should know better, especially when they become teenagers, definitely. But if they're 5 or 6, they really shouldn't be, unless it's something that child has been endangered or that child may have witnessed something. But questioning that child in reference to they may be a suspect or something, they can ask the child, let's say it's a 12-year-old child. They can ask the child, hey, can you tell me what happened? So-and-so said you did that. That child can say they don't want to talk to them. But the officer do have the right to ask the child a question, right? And at that point now, the officer should also maintain this type of thing. He shouldn't hide behind that. He should know this is a child. Hey, I want to ask you a question. Is your mom or dad around so I can ask you a question? But they will tell you that I can ask your child a question. Your child can say that they don't want to talk to me. But that child is a child, and the child don't know that. So the laws and stuff like that gotta be fixed where the officer can't have a loophole. Law in any laws, like I deal with a lot of politics stuff, right? And lobbyist stuff. Laws are always passed for got a loophole where one group can get out of it or one person can get out of it. So we gotta, like you saying, I go to city council. I go when they put these new policies out. I do. This is where we got to step up at, because they shouldn't be able to talk to your kids. But believe it or not, you're going to get mad and raise hell and be pissed off about it. But then the law going to slap you in the face and say, well, the officer can ask the child a question. If the officer is not questioning them as a suspect, the officer can talk to them as long as they want. You may say, no, you can't talk to my child. But the law doesn't say that.
Get thrown out, and that happens a lot.
It get thrown out. It get thrown out if that child becomes a suspect in something, and that officer didn't Mirandize them, and they were a suspect. That's the difference in what I'm trying to say. I just told my little cousin them that if an officer want to speak to you and question you, I literally told him this 2 hours ago. Ask them, if you of age of a teenage age, let's say 13, 12 on up, you ask them at that time, am I a suspect in something? If that officer is questioning your child and your child, let's say they don't say that. If they are talking to your child and your child ain't a suspect, if they say, hey, did you see some guys walking through the neighborhood the other day? Did you guys see this? Have you guys had this to happen to you? The law allows for them to do that because they're not questioning that child as a suspect. So they can talk to the child But if the child is a suspect in something and they say something that is self-incriminating, yes, chances are it can get thrown out or overturned based on you not Mirandizing that child or giving the parents the option.
This is one thing that we deal with in our neighborhood, and that goes back to parents. You need to know what the police can and can't do, and you need to express this to your children. Now, one thing, it's another thing that I've seen in my community after the Tops grocery store killing, when that white dude came in and killed all them black folks in the grocery store up in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
After that, this is another incident that happened in my community. Right after that, we started seeing this little white kid, and he wasn't no little white kid. He's about 15 years old at the time, and he would just be walking through the neighborhood. Now, mind you, we in a black neighborhood. To our left side, the neighborhood next to us is a black neighborhood. On the main road, to our right side, are, like you say, trailer parks. You got a white trailer, you got a white, low-income white neighborhood here, low-income Hispanic neighborhood here. The black people stay in the middle class part, but we're all within less than a mile of each other. We don't go into each other's neighborhoods. So it's odd to see a Hispanic in my neighborhood. It's odd to see a white person in my neighborhood, just like it's odd to see us in their neighborhood. So when we saw that, now mind you, this was the very next day after that killing, the white boy walking through the neighborhood. I called. I said, hey, this guy walking through my neighborhood with a book bag on, and he don't live around here. Now, if I stayed in a white neighborhood and made that call, it'd have been 30 damn police officers out here to question him. Because I'm in a black neighborhood. The 911 officer said, well, what is he doing? Just because he's there don't mean he's a problem. How do you know he don't live in that neighborhood? I said, because I told her it was a little white kid, and I gave her the description. I said, because I live in an all-black neighborhood, it's only one white family that lives down here, and they live down the street in the opposite direction, and I know them personally. So he don't live here. I said, so what is he doing here is the question. She questioned me. I said, are you going to send an officer out, or do I have to make a complaint? She finally sent the officer, and I told her, I said, I want the officer to touch bases with me and let me know what he come up with. They found him. They talked to him. They came to talk to me. They said, well, we don't see what the problem was that he was walking through here. He shouldn't have been walking through here because we have another neighborhood right beside us now. That came later. They was building a trail. They were building right there, so it was kind of a trail into his neighborhood. And he was using us as a shortcut. I told them, I said, if he was black and this was a white neighborhood, you wouldn't be asking me that. The reason that I asked you, I said, do you not know what just happened yesterday? And he walk around here with a book bag on in an all black neighborhood where he don't belong here. But that's the difference in policing.
So let me say something, because I don't know if you see my expression. I hear you. I hear you, and I agree with you. We deal with racism. We deal with inequality. But I reserve to paint it with such a broad brush, right? And I'm not saying your incident wasn't what it was, okay? Because it could be a single stroke of the brush, right? Mm-hmm. But is everything, I think for me, where I slack at, like, I ain't condoning the police, because police and now, man, this shit, what they doing, shit is wrong. George Floyd, it's the police officer. Yeah, they are overly, they do too much. They're allowing their feelings to get involved. They just do too much, okay? But if every time we have a situation, because how can Jerry legitimately say, if this was a white neighborhood, mm-hmm. it would be something different? I know we have seen evidence of certain things happening when it's in the black community, but if we but we can't necessarily say that we've seen it in the white community either way, right? We can't really say that we've seen it in these white communities, whether that happened or not. I will tell you from my experience being a police officer, if a crime is a crime in a black neighborhood and a white neighborhood. So if we send 4 officers to a black neighborhood for a burglary, we send 4 officers to a white neighborhood. You know, sometimes that depicts on how, you know, how many officers you got available at the time. If I need backup in a white neighborhood, I get the same amount of backup I do in a black neighborhood. Like, I haven't seen all of that. Now, I'm not trying to take away that the racism and the inequality doesn't exist within the police department, but I call it at when it happens. If I call the police department or if a police officer pull me over, I don't immediately go and say, well, if I was white, you wouldn't do me that way. Or did you see what just happened in Sanford, Florida? With what's his name? That's why so and so. That officer may have heard, but you don't get no briefing, no bullets, and you don't get no instruction because of what happened there. We hear it just like you do. We see it on the news. It's nothing that I know. Okay, that's him, even though he wasn't a police officer. But what I'm saying, whatever another police officer does, it don't necessarily register to me because I don't do that. That ain't somebody. It's isolated. What I'm saying, the racist things that have happened is that person, that officer was racist. That officer was who he was. He was a menace, but it's isolated at the time to him until proven to be other places. Now, if you have a department, they have investigated that department and they said, oh, we got 200 officers and all 200 were racist. We find out they've had racist comment. They had this, that, and the other. There was an incident where there was 4 or 5 officers talking and they was racist. They was talking on the radio, but one of them wasn't a racist and they were saying all this racist stuff and he went and reported them, right? It was a small community and they investigated, and overall that department was deemed as being a racist department and they went in and did something about it. I think that's where I kind of cringe at sometimes, because it's like, I understand, I ain't naive. I know we have some racist acts that happen out here, but I draw the line when I say, man, it would be different if I was white. It would be different. I don't know that. Now, if I also know that I have created an atmosphere to breed or I done something wrong, and I feel like you the same type of man, that's not what you do. You don't play the card. I'm the type of person, if I done something wrong, hey, officer, yeah, I ran the red light. I was speeding. Here's my information. I'm going to comply. Now, if that officer want to get beside himself and do some other thing, yeah, you know, at that point, I'm going to shut up. I'll try to record because I know who I'm dealing with right now. But I ain't going to paint the officer behind him as the same because he's just responding to a scene. He or she may not necessarily know what's going on. Got an officer carrying on in a way saying this person ain't complying. You're starting to see more of it where officers are questioning each other on the scene because they don't want to get caught up in something. Like in George Floyd, the guy who was just he was a trainee. Mm-hmm. What's his name? Was his FTO? He made comments to try to stop him. But what are you going to do as a trainee? You could just do what your FTO said, and then he ended up getting in trouble. Because they was like, well, you should have known. So it's like, and I think he was a black guy, I think. He was mixed, yeah. So what I'm saying is that for me, I agree with you. I fight this all the time. As an activist, as a unionist for the federal government, doing EEO, everything. I see racism. I know racism or unfair treatment happens in departments and areas, but I try my best not to paint everyone in that area with that. And I try not to carry that over to our kids because it's bad enough. And now they're going to react in a certain way that may cause more harm to them. They're going to say, oh, you're a racist police. Or you just pulling me over for this and that. And the officer may not be that, but now you put him in a situation where He's got to do his job, right? Because you think he's gonna let you off now if you don't said all these things to him and did all these things. I hear officers tell me all the time, like, man, I ain't racist, man. He said, but every time I try to deal with somebody black, man, they make me feel like I'm racist. I ain't doing nothing wrong. I'm doing my job. I can't even pull somebody over. First thing they say, are you racist? And they be dead wrong. So I think for me, that's why I kind of like, don't get me wrong, I understand it, but I try not to carry that stroke so broad. I make it, you have shown me that you are racist. You show me, this department has shown me, baby, protocol. Police pull you over, police protocol. If he's white, take extra precautionary because we don't know. If he show you that he's not that, continue your regular protocol.
Well, do you guys think that Tyreek Hill?
It's an
Do
old
you think
saying
Tyreek Hill?
that my grandma.
Oh, go ahead. Say, tell us what your grandma said. Hot
No, go
tub.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you think Tyreek Hill had the proper training?
No,
Like, has he been told?
but Tyreek Hill, and I'm glad you said that because I was going to say something to you about it. Tyreek Hill demeanor, Tyreek Hill and everything that he did had nothing to do with what happened. Tyreek Hill demeanor and Tyreek Hill wasn't fighting them. He didn't pull a weapon. He didn't do anything. So based on how they treated him, it does not fit. The officers are wrong because you are trained to be the bigger person. You are the officer. You're the one got to understand. They tell you this. The people are not going to like it. The public is not going to like what you're doing. They're not going to like because they're getting a ticket. You have to be aware. You got to be able to separate your, you know how we do in refereeing, Tyrone.
Right.
You know, we get that same thing in refereeing. And so sometimes we have tools, right? Where we say our tool belt. How do we deal with it? We got tools and rules we can deal with the decorum, demeanors and bad attitude was no different with the police department, right? So if you have that and Tyreek is violating one of those, then you handle the protocol. Right now, he just mad and upset. He don't want to roll his window down. Now, there's a protocol of safety there that the officer of safety could be involved. If he don't want to do that, ask him why. If he said, because I don't want to, I'm fucking Tyreek Hill, I can do what I want to do. Okay? Now you start to interject that protocol. But he said, I'm Tyreek Hill. People are riding by. I don't want them taking pictures of me and doing this, that, and the other. No disrespect to you, Mr. Officer. Now we got something different, right? Or the officer know I'm Tyreek Hill. Ask me why. At least the officer should ask. But Tyreek Hill demeanor, I don't care how much of an asshole he was, the officer allowed that when he said, open the door, Tyreek Hill, I guess, opened the door. Then he said, matter of fact, get out of the car. Because he said at first, I'm going to ask you to step out. Then he said, matter of fact, get out of the car. Okay, what was the matter of fact?
Right. Now that's when it got personal. You know what I mean? That's when it really got personal
for the officer.
Yeah.
So now, as we say in basketball, the coaches feed the players, right? The coaches feeding all this stuff about the referees, and the players are jumping in on it. So now this officer is feeding bad energy, and the other officers are reading off his energy, and you got that one that's ready to goddamn do. I'm sorry, you got that one that is ready to react already. And all it does for him to read the energy, oh, it's ready, set, go. So he's snatching them out of the window. He got then the other thing that I didn't like. I ain't knocking it, but and people have tattoos, but then he had tattoos on his hands, right? I know he had tattoos all over his arm because he had sleeves on, and it was warm, right? So then it makes me to start wondering. He had a shirt up under his other shirt. Which ain't nothing wrong with that if he's a motorcycle cop, and I get it because sometimes it just depends on what the weather's like and you know exposed to the sun. But when I looked at the tattoos, and that's the investigative side of me, I wonder what the other tattoos say on his arm. Does it indicate some kind of racist stuff? Does it indicate anything else? But like Tubbs has said, that officer got a file in there that's big as crap. He got complaints on him that say he's been harsh to the public. He violated protocol. Them are the ones you pay attention to. When you got them other ones that's in there where people call and say, well, he should never pull me over. He just gave me a ticket for no reason. You're going to get them kind of thing. I had someone say one time, like when you pull over a female and you're locking them up or you want to do a search prior to handcuffing them or whatever, arresting them, you don't take your hands and pat them like you would a male. You take the back of your hand and you just kind of bump them going up and down, right? So that way they're saying you're not feeling on them, right? You don't use the palm of your hands. But anyway, I did that, and I had someone else out there with me. Well, she called and said that I felt on her or something of that nature. Well, I had a witness at that time. We weren't wearing body cam, but it was just a lie because I was locking her up because I caught her with some crack in her car. So it was like, but you get those kind of things, right? Mm-hmm. So then they feed you energy. And I'm not saying that the officer energy, he couldn't, like we do with refereeing. They give me some bad, I say, hey man, watch your mouth. So, I'm giving you the energy you're giving me, but on the other hand, I'm not going to escalate to the level you are. I'll give you that energy back, but I'm not going to escalate. And that's where the officers fail. The one officer, when they asked Tyreek Hill to sit down, there's no protocol to say he has to sit down. I understand why. They may think he may run, or they'll say it's for your safety. No, I tell you, I want to stand up. I'm good. If he ain't doing anything, making no trouble, he don't have to sit down. Think about this too. This is where the sensitivity training got to come in. You got 3 or 4 white guys and a Hispanic guy. You got a black man, and you want him to bow down in a manner or sit down in a manner while you guys stand over him. Even though that probably never came into play, you as an officer got to take this in your mind. You got to have this heightened sense of awareness of how this can look because of what society is showing you and what society is breeding with these officers' involvement, shootings and killing. Look what happened on January the 6th. Look at all these supremacist type people coming out. As an officer, you have to have a as they say in basketball, heightened sense of awareness as an official. You gotta be prepared for what you think ain't gonna happen. And there's no excuse for you not to.
You know what? This me personally. I was a soldier for a lot of years. I served in combat zone. The rules of engagement of how we deal with not even Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. The rules of engagement, how we deal with enemy combatants, are more strict than how the police have to deal with us. I think you need military standards. We can't can't just come into your village, even if we know that it's enemies out there, there's somebody sitting in this particular building sniping us every day. We can't come to your village and just start kicking in doors and treating the people any kind of way. We get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
That standard needs to be applied to the police department. What makes them more greater than the actual citizens of the United States? We should be afforded those same rights.
What would make you feel? What would be an incident so we can understand, or I can understand, that would fit in that scenario? I understand. I've been in the military, so I understand what you're saying. We can see someone getting killed over there, but it's like we're not supposed to go and react to that. The human side of you want to react to that. Like if you ever been like in a safari or something, and they'll say you watching this lion kill a zebra or a gazelle, and you feeling bad for it, and you want to go intervene and save it, or animals dying. They say, no, that's not for you to intervene. This is for, nature to take its course. But in your case, where you're saying the police shouldn't be allowed to intervene, what would be a scenario that would fit that?
Not intervene. I just gave generic scenario. One that would apply to what we're saying is that okay, we had some enemy combatants. We got control through the firefight and everything. Once we had the zip ties on them and everything. We had a soldier. He was uncertain because his battle buddy got shot.
Okay, I got you now. Yeah.
He put hands on him. He went down the one he pistol whipped. He got charged for assault.
Yep.
He ended up doing 11 work behind that.
Yep.
Because you cannot do that to them. Once you have this, you can't
under control. Yep. I think
that's not being applied to us. We're seeing, and I'm not saying so much in this scenario, but we've seen similar scenarios where how many times have we seen detained people, cuff people, end up dead, beat up,
or getting hit, just getting hit out because they don't like what they're saying to them.
Right.
And I think what you're saying now, this is the reason why I say it does exist, but it is not pushed amongst the officer. The officers got the training is from the police training is getting better, but a lot of the mentality of thinking came out during a time of separatism when there was black and white. It came out doing like Jim Crow, like the policing is just not starting to revolve over, right? Where we had these things. So yes, you're right. I agree with you. If there's not a law, if the policy does not exist, if me and Tubbs on the scene and I got this under control, I don't need you to come and put hands on someone if I am the initiating officer has not put hands on him. If I have not put my hands on him to deem that is necessary for me to use that force, you should not come and step on the scene because now you're putting us all in jeopardy because you're just a cocky type of person. Go back to when I used to say I knew officers were like that. And when I would have them or some control would send them as a backup, I was like, nope, disregard, I got it. I had a supervisor that was like that. Every time Sarge would come, he just an old school white dude. He probably had a little separatism, but I didn't never see where we would say a supremacist or maybe a racist type attitude. I can follow you when you say supremacy. But I never saw that in him. But he was just he was an asshole. He come to people's houses and tell them to cut your TV down. I can't talk. Well, we in these people's house. Let's step outside. Ask them to step outside. Go tell them kids to go to bed. Go put them kids, that kind of, so we can, like, bruh, you can't do that. We in their house. Yeah. Now, if we're not there, if we just there to try to do an investigation, figure out what's going on, but if we there to effect an arrest or to do something, or we're doing a search warrant and those type things, yeah, we have control over the scene at the time. But like you saying, I don't need Tubbs to come behind me because this dude just called us a bunch of asshole. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like me and you. Like, I think you remember we was in Columbus at one time. We had the issue, right? And I was dealing with the guy. And you said, Jerry, I'm finna go get the cops. I said, I don't need the cops. I got him.
Yeah.
You remember? Because he gave me.
He gave it to you, and I was like, yeah, this is the way, in my mind, I was like, let's handle it this way. Let's go ahead and let them get involved and deal with this and get this clown out of here. You know what I mean?
Well, it was a time and I keep relying to this because refereeing is somewhat like being a police at the time, because at the time there was a time I needed you as a partner to step in and say, okay, well, Jerry has escalated to a level that he don't have mental control over the situation now. So let me step in. At the time I did, when I told you we didn't need it, because he was giving me energy that I was like, okay, you want to talk crap to me, talk shit to me? I can talk shit. I can give it right back. And I was. But when I started giving it back to him, he couldn't handle it. And at that point, he wanted to escalate. So made the statement about people going to the car to get the gun. So I said, okay. Now we're going to another level. Now it's time to get the cops involved. Because when I thought about it, okay, I cut that off. Now we're going to deal with the facts at hand. Now he wants to say, I could tell you was a cop by the way you, now you want to, but anyway. So I think what Tubbs is saying, you're right. It's got to be policies. But even at that time, as a partner, if you saw I lost mental control of the scene, like someone should have stepped in and said, hey, man, when the officer said, matter of fact, get out the car. Hey, wait a minute. Let's wait. Why are you asking him? You don't have to be disrespectful to him, like your partner, your wife or husband. you know, you ain't got to correct that person in front of the kids if you don't agree with them. Just, you know, it's a way to do it. Say, hey man, let me speak. Let him stay in the car, man. Let me ask you a question. Why are we asking him to stand out the car? Are you going to arrest him? Are you going to detain him? If that's not the situation, then why do he need to stay out of the car? Right now, we have the door open. We're talking to him. We can see. That's a voice of reasoning. But they didn't
Yeah.
have that on scene, right? Or it's normally that it's not. And this is why I be like cringing sometimes and hesitating to paint everybody with the brush on the scene. Because sometimes it be that one officer that he ain't involved, he ain't doing that. He's just there to enforce the rules as needed. He ain't overly policing. He ain't none of that. I'm there. So now he's caught up like, wow, I'm caught up on what? I was just there on the scene. Yes, my officers were trying to handcuff him. It wasn't me that initiated, but at this point, it's been initiated. I cannot no longer just say, I'm going to back off from this. No, I was trying to hold his arm to get the cuffs on him. They initiated this arrest. They initiated this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they got to be held.
Well, absolutely. And I know your Cowboys are about to get started here.
Oh,
They
yeah.
I think they're playing the Saints, right? So
Yeah, well,
I know you want to get your I know you
yeah.
want to get your chance to see your boys go 2-0, right? That's what I'm certain that's how you feel about it. And
You see
Hot Tub,
the color.
yeah, I see it. I see it. Hot
I
Tub
see.
Falcons, they play Monday night against the Eagles, my dad's team. So we're gonna see how that pans out
There we go.
Monday night. Yeah, I see
Man,
your
but
Falcons.
but I will say this before we go, and thank you. I do want to get home and do that, but I'm sure I got some other things I got to do before I get there. I know my wife don't call me once or twice, but what I want to say, Hot Tub, bruh, let's talk. Let's get my number or whatever. Let us, because this is the thing. I don't care if it's black or white. Like, we got to have these discussions so we can get these somewhat misconceptions from each other, so we can fully understand that we do have these issues and why black people act the way. I had a guy say, well, whether it's black or white, why do y'all support Democrats? It ain't that all of us support Democrats, because all of them not good. We support what support us, and Republicans now are showing a side of them that is not really about policies and laws. It's about what he said. It's about supremacy. That's what you're showing us. But I want to just say, Tub, just, man, anytime, whether it's a community event, whether it's just talking to some kids and whatever, we can get both sides. We can get, because your opinion is just as valuable as my opinion. But till we start having these conversations, we never gonna make any stride.
I agree.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And to what you said, I'm gonna close kind of out on this note. To the family or anybody around Tyreek Hill, that if you love him, if you know him, if you're in the organization with him, it's protocol for Black America, for Black people, on how we interact with the police.
Yeah.
Even though they were wrong, in my opinion, they acted to it. Related the situation. And that's what I get across to my young Black men. Especially young Black people, but young Black males especially.
Yep. It ain't fair, but it's true.
It's for you to come home. You don't hold court in the streets. If they're gonna lock you up, they're gonna lock you up regardless of what. You can't talk your way out of it. You can't argue your way out of it. Let them put the handcuffs on you. It's gonna be 24 hours before you can get out. Just chill out. Fight that shit in court.
There you go.
Parents, if you're young, if you a minor, call your parents. Come get you up out of that situation. Let them fight it in court. The object. I want to see everybody come home alive.
There you go.
There you go.
Yep, that is it, bro. We'll end it with that, because
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, and again, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys being on, man, taking the time to do this. It's great content, man. And this thing flew by because see, it's a ton of there's way more layers to this than just what we saw last Sunday around this time. It was more than just that, as you can tell by this conversation. And Hot Tub, Jerry, I appreciate him being on. I know he had to run. Hot Tub, I know you got to get moving too. Big shout out to Cynthia Moore. She says great conversation. She couldn't hear earlier, but she was like, well, we got all that technicality straight. And she agrees with Jerry. She agreed with things that you said, Hot Tub. And we would definitely appreciate her tuning in as well as everyone else who did. Big shout out to Randy, aka Philly Red Zone, for his comments earlier on the episode, and for everyone. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button. 411 Sports World Network. Make sure you catch us every Sunday, Hot Tub and myself. And as you can see now, I think Jerry's going to jump in too because we tackle some tough issues on Sundays that are they're sports related, but it's off the field things such as this. And we definitely appreciate that. Tub, appreciate you being in there in the
Oh,
studio with me today, and we'll bring you back as always on a weekly basis. We'll discuss what we're going to tackle next, as we usually do. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe. Make sure you share because sharing is caring. Hit that notification bell. All right. Make sure you follow us on 401 Sports World Network on YouTube. All right. For Hot Tub, for Jerry, I am Mr. 411. We thank everyone for tuning in for this important episode. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we are out of here.